Well, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone out there. Hello to our audience and panelists today. I'm Mark O'Brien, and I'm with the CM First Group, and I'm your MC for today's webcast. Thank you for joining us. I know people are back to work this week after having some enjoyment with the summer, and we're looking to having a very lively interaction with the entire community. And apologies if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, because obviously it hasn't been summer for you. I want to get right into a poll question, because this webcast is really going to have a lot to do with AI and futures. And my first poll question would be, are you using AI in your business? You have one option is please select only one. You're using it a lot, a little, or researching it, or it's not quite on the radar yet. And as a reminder, organizers and panelists do not vote. So 2/3 basically were not on the radar yet. If you know our community, that we tend not to be the first. We're not waiting in the pool when it's when things are certainly in an experimental phase. A little bit slower than Wall Street to talk about and find places for using it. Although 22% say, hey, you're doing a little bit, and 11% are researching about using it. So for the people that are are researching and doing a little, which is about 1/3 of the people, what would be the primary use case? Even if you hadn't done it, if you had a single area of the company that might be considering AI to look at things for using artificial intelligence. So which functional area would it be, would you think? Would it be customer service and support, or sales and marketing, perhaps supply chain management, fraud detection and prevention, or other? I know it's a hot topic. I went to a meeting here in Austin last night. We had over 300 people on quantum computing, and these are actually the areas of the company that, or of an organization that they're looking at to drive it. So for our responders here on the webcast, customer service and support is kind of the most popular. A lot of people had, some number of people had others as well too. And then fraud detection, prevention, and supply chain management with 12%, and sales and marketing only at 6%. I'm just struggling in my own role trying to figure out what my first use case would be for sales and marketing and using AI. So getting back to the webinar speaker, our speakers today, we're going to have 3 breakout rooms. As I said, I'm Mark O'Brien, and I'm joined with Roger Griffith, their user community president. And then we're going to have presentations by Abram Darnutzer of Laufer Group, Kiyoshi Terasawa of CM First, and Alexander Levy of Barrel, Quebec. So Roger, I'd like to introduce you and our user group president, and Roger's going to talk about today's agenda and other items of interest for the community.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, so as Mark mentioned, the emphasis on the lightning talks for today is modernization and specifically AI. We're going to do a recap of the last conference that was held in Boca Raton, Florida. We sent out a summary to everyone who attended the conference, and we're going to review the results of that summary. We've also had everyone vote on their best session for each of the tracks. So we're going to announce who the winners are for each of the tracks. And we're going to talk a little bit about planning for the next conference, which will be in the fall of 2024. As Mark mentioned, we have 3 modernization lightning talks, migration of 2E to Plex and Web Client by Abram. Kiyoshi is going to talk about COBOL to Java. And Alexandre is going to talk about migration of TUI to Plex and Web Client in his organization. And at the very end, we're going to do a Q&A, and we're going to announce a survey that we're going to send out that we would like for you to participate in. Okay, just a reminder, if you have any questions, if you would please type them into the console, and we'll make sure that we get them answered at the end of the webcast today. Okay, so just kind of looking back at the conference in Boca Raton, Florida, there was some good and there was some bad. And the good was on the survey, we asked everyone on a scale of 1 to 10 to vote, and the average response on that, with 10 being the best, was an 8.2. So not bad. There's definitely some room for improvement. Some of the best parts about the conference, everyone seemed to like the venue. It was a nice place right on the beach there. Couldn't have asked for a better venue, in my opinion. Everyone always likes the opportunity to learn some new things and meet some new friends and see some people that we already know from prior conferences. And of course, everyone seems to like happy hour. So on the bad, it was pretty much on the virtual experience side. There seemed to be a lot of problems with connectivity. Sometimes the presenters might not necessarily be sharing their screen on time and have to be reminded. There seemed to be kind of a disconnect between the virtual audience and the presenter. And so an example would be not necessarily taking questions from the virtual audience at the end. So these are things that we definitely need to continue to improve upon for the people who are attending virtually. All right, so part of the survey, we had everyone vote on their favorite sessions for each of the 4 tracks: Plex, Tech, TUI, Technology, and Spanish. And the winners are, so there was a tie on the Plex track between the show and tell and the tips and techniques. And the speakers for the show and tell are Abram and Daryl. For the tips and techniques, it was Abram again, myself, and Boris. On the TUI track, the session was for tips and techniques with Russell, Eamon, Daryl, and Mark. The technology track was European tips and success stories, and that's Paulo, Sergio, and Mirko. And the Spanish track was utilizing digital signatures in CA Plex, and that was Ramon, Jose, and Jorge. Hopefully I pronounced everyone's names right. And on the next slide, I believe we have a picture of the, there you go. So there's the plaques that are being sent out to the winners of the best sessions. So for those of you speakers, those plaques are on the way. Thank you very much for speaking and really continuing to make this conference a success. Okay, so in the fall of 2024, we are planning to hold the next Plex TUI conference, and we'd like to start a discussion about where you would like to see the conference located. Traditionally, we've done every other conference in Austin. That's not to say that it has to be the case again this time, but that's just kind of been the pattern so far. And then another discussion is do we want to continue to do hybrid, so offer both virtual as well as in-person? It's always a struggle to offer both, but we realize that in this new environment that we're in, it's pretty much something you have to offer in order to get your participation rates up where we want them. So we're certainly open to it. And then another thing is what kind of theme would everyone like for the conference? So be thinking about these, and at the end of this webcast today, we're gonna have an opportunity to kind of have an open discussion. So maybe throw out some of your comments at that time, and we can discuss them then. And then of course, please go to our website and send an email at info@plextui.com with any of your comments, and we certainly will take that into consideration as we get further into the planning for this next conference. All right, so Mark, I'm going to turn it over to you, and we're going to get into our 3 lightning talk.
Great. Before we have our first lightning speaker, we have another poll question talking about modernization, because the theme of each of our speakers is going to be looking at a different aspect of software modeling modernization. So which systems are you interested in modernizing? If I have a conversation with a customer, I'd say that the vast number are thinking about it, but whether it's CA Plex based or we've come across native IBM systems in COBOL or RPG, one of the 3GL. On the Microsoft side, we've got Visual Basic or Delphi or other 3GLs. Or is there another system? Sometimes there's systems that are subservient to the others that are going on, or we've had other customers are saying that they're just maintaining the course and they're doing with what they've got, and unless there's an acquisition or another exceptional event, they're not going to be planning any modernization. It's not in the budget and not on the target right now. So 2/3 definitely looking at modernizing TUI and Plex, followed by native IBM COBOL, which is pretty much what I think we would expect seeing. This audience is very leaning towards TUI and IBM. No one's looking at modernizing Microsoft, and then there's some other responses, other systems, and then curiously, over almost a quarter people are saying that they're not going to modernize anything currently. So great. Now I'd like to introduce our first lightning talk. This is going to be Abram Darnutzer. He's going to be talking about taking a large TUI application to a pure job application, giving you step-by-step instructions and eliminating the green screen as a part of the process. His talk will include converting the TUI, the DDS reports to modern JavaScript reporting, and as well as simplifying the code base. So as lightning is coming down from the above there, Abram, please take it away and show us what you've got for us today.
All right, can you allow me to share my screen? There we go. Oh,
here we go.
Now I need to see which screen. Do y'all see Plex? Do y'all see my?
Yes.
Okay, I need to switch the screen. Give me 1 sec. Okay, can y'all see my PowerPoint?
Yes.
Lightning
talk the ages.
Yes, that's correct. I mean, you saw I won 2 awards. I mean, essentially, so all my talks are lightning talks for the ages. But so anyway, I'm going to talk about taking an application from TUI to Plex to a pure Java code base, and what our future is going forward, and what our ambitions are as we move on. As Mark said, my name is Abram Darnutzer. I'm the lead architect at Laufer Group International. We are a freight forwarding company, so essentially the easiest way to describe what we do, we are travel agents for cargo. We handle booking on steamships, rail lines, handle customs, all of that stuff. So I'm going to start out with a little bit of history. So the origins of this application, which is basically the cornerstone of the entire business, is called Warport 1. It started out as a TUI application developed by an independent software vendor with lots of different clients that they were trying to satisfy. And as I think some of you have experienced, I've definitely seen this as well. If you try to cater to everyone, you're not catering to anyone. And so because of this, they had people move off and they couldn't really sustain what they wanted. So Laufer bought the software in 1997. So took over it completely and had been doing in-house development up until a couple of years ago. So this has been a key part of the business. It manages their accounting, their communications with customs, transportation management. All of these things that are vital to the business are all handled through this one green screen application. And because of this, and because it's so customized, and big props to the TUI development team, they really milked everything out of TUI that they could for this application. And that's just not me saying that. That is other people that I have seen when we originally were analyzing the TUI model said this exact things. But as anything is, after 30 years, there is modernization that's going to be needed. So M3 to the rescue. So about 2.5 years ago now, and so just a quick point, anybody who saw me present at the conference, some of this is similar to something I present about, but trust me, there is other new things. And even if you're just a Plex shop, there are things that might interest you coming down the line. So please bear with. So now the application is a Plex Java application running in the browser using web client, and I'll show it in a second. We've been fully live now for 6 months, and now we're really just in enhancement mode, giving the users new features, streamlining the application, while always also slowly replacing our code base with handwritten Java. Our end goal at Laufer Group is to not be a shop that uses a code generation tool, but to be in complete control of our source code. And through that, and through the migrate application, we're able to slowly, replace that code while keeping the business running and everything going. So our day-to-day approach is, if it already exists in the model, go ahead and call it. I'm not trying to force everyone to rewrite everything yet. But anything that is new that does not currently exist or we would need a new function for, we're just going to write a method in Java and consume that in Plex. And as we do this, it's that kind of strangling vine approach where we're slowly taking over the code base bit by bit. And eventually, the goal is to basically have all of our code in pure Java, and Plex becomes basically a data modeling tool for reference point of view, and our user interface. And the other thing from that is now our user interface can literally be whatever we want, because then we can start exposing our Java through REST APIs and things like that. So a large question I get about this, and a lot of people ask me about this at the conference actually, is how do we do this? How does that work? Well, Plex's Java does pretty basic data access. It just uses a JDBC connection object, which you then run queries on. And that's essentially it. And so because of that, I'm able to piggyback off of the connection object that Plex is already using and use that in my handwritten code to use the same connection, user, everything, library list, all of those items to make everything seamless and make my code conversion much easier. And to get this database connection object, it is a very simple line of code. Well, simple relatively. Of course, it's Plex. Everything's got to be a little verbose, but you just get the database manager and you get the JDBC connection string and pass in the function object. And so literally you can just put this into any source code object where you call one of your methods, and then you can have your connection object. So essentially then your handwritten Java code will look something like this. I can have like a static method that says run the code, and I pass in the connection object and any key information that I need. So just to kind of do a little show and not tell, here is, and I'll get to this reporting object I'm currently completely rewriting, and I just do run report, pass in the connection object and any other information I need, and then I give a note of what object I'm recreating. And that way, as we go down the line, if someone is converting something else, they can see this function, this code on rewriting in Java was calling this function. Has somebody already rewritten what this does? And they could just do a quick search and find it. So it makes our lives easier going forward. So that's our big thing for our primary code base. So because of that, TUI has well, green screen in general has an option called submit job. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. It allows you to run the code asynchronously, and it's really good for like long processes and things like that you don't want it to be blocking the user working. This is all possible. Obviously, asynchronous processing are possible in all modern languages, even especially Java. And I will say this: in recreating that with Plex, it's a big pain in the butt because Plex is very picky about all the things you need to set up and how the objects need to look and things like that. So I had written the POC for this, and if anybody wants to see that code, contact me privately because I'm more than happy to show it all. And it works, but it is a pain in the butt. But if your code is just a just handwritten Java method, running asynchronous large processes is much, much, much easier. So that's kind of where we were at the conference. Now our next big step is taking our reporting. One of the big holes in the M3 process, and I feel comfortable saying this because I was one of the people who was writing it, was we didn't have a good way to deal with the reporting code. If anyone had ever seen TUI reporting, it's a strange beast. It's not commonly, it has no real, doesn't even have a lot of commonality with other TUI function templates. But Kyoshi, being brilliant as he is, kind of figured out a way to kind of do it. And so using that, we have migrated all our reports into our model as well and are integrating them in our application. Unfortunately, we use a lot of CL programs as kind of a gatekeeper to those. So implementation is not big bang, it's more one at a time, but that's more just our problem and not necessarily a problem with the approach itself. So the pattern is quite brilliant. All it does is it's a migration of the TUI print code, but then just converts all the variable objects into JSON, which if you're familiar with JSON, it's just, if you're unfamiliar with JSON, it's just basically a text string markup of data, very lightweight, and pretty much every JavaScript framework, everything kind of uses that now. And so JS report will then take that JSON and consume it and turn it into a PDF or an Excel spreadsheet. And here, let's actually finally go in the application and I'll show you some stuff. I think my session's probably good. So here is World Report 2. So this is what we've created and are running. And so I'm going to go show two reports. So the first is we're running the purely migrated code. And so I'll go to this and let's just run it. And so I'll talk about kind of the things I built on top of what CM first did in a second. So you'll notice this code takes upwards of 3 seconds to work, which I think is pretty good considering how much actual work it's doing in the background, but that might not be acceptable to some people. But you can see here, it spits out all the information as a PDF. So one thing that you kind of run into, especially with a migration, is TUI, due to limitations, a lot of hoops need to get jumped through to get all the data that are needed, especially for very complex reports. In a more modern setting, for the most part, I can just turn that into just one SQL query and it does all the work for me. And I understand TUI does SQL now, but not all this code was developed recently. And so with JS Report, really all it cares about is you have a template and you have some JSON. And so instead on certain items that the code had to jump through way more hoops than it needed now, then we're all looking to rewrite all our Plex Java into pure Java anyway. So I just write a Java method for it. And building a JSON string in Java or pretty much any language is very, very easy. And so here, let me show an example of one that I rewrote. So you notice this one is near instantaneous because, not to brag, I mean, I did win 2 presentation awards. I could write some good code. You can see here, this all spits it out. And so what the code basically looks like is I have a JSON object that I just put information into. And so it's really quite simple. And if anyone has ever dealt with Crystal reports in the past, I'm personally not a fan, and the documentation is limited at best. I found this infinitely easier than JS Report. And you might be wondering, what does the templating look like? Well, JS Report comes with a kind of work sandbox where the code is literally just HTML and JavaScript. And the only thing that's in there is markup to consume my JSON variables. And you could even run things in here. And please bear with, it's going to be a little blank because the JSON I put in here is not the complete one. but you could see here, it fills in the data, and you could see what your report looks like. And so I find that the feedback and the development loop of this, especially compared to JS report, again, to be much simpler. And for you pure Plex shops who all my migration talk has been very boring, please wake up. If you want to actually do this in Plex, this is all very, very simple as well. Because as I said before, you could write handwritten code and do it. But if you don't want to do that, I'm sure, I'm sure it can be done. It absolutely can be done, where you do something similar to what the migrated reports do, and we can write process group patterns or something to build this JSON in a more Plex development way, if that's what you're more comfortable with. So all these things can easily be done with all this. And the only code I really had to put on top of this was where I want the report to go, whether I want to email it out or open it right away or put it in the IFS somewhere. Other than that, everything else was very, very simple. And even that code is actually pretty simple. So that's kind of our next big thing, is to get all of our reporting over. And then as we still go, we're slowly replacing our code as we're enhancing it as well. And so hopefully when I speak again on this next year, year after that, I can give you more and more updates of how much we've actually replaced and where we're going with our modernization of it. Like I said, if anybody has any questions or wants to see any examples of things that I've done, there is my email. Feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to help. But really, that's it. That's all I had for right now. Hopefully I stayed within my time. And I'll pass it back to you, Mark.
Great. Thank you very much, Abram. Next up, we're going to have Kiyoshi Terasawa, who's going to be talking about something that has been coming up quite a bit in our community, is looking at transforming COBOL, doing transformation of COBOL to Java, to maintainable Java. Yeah.
Yep.
The important adjective, maintainable. So take it away, Kiyoshi.
Yeah, Marcus, I'm going to start it off. So I'm going to give it a brief introduction of John Rhodes.
Okay,
yeah,
great.
Capability we're very excited about, certainly. And definitely the question is, can we take COBOL to maintainable Java? There are a lot of attempts at this. COBOL and other languages, moving that to something like Java, that's all possible, but a lot of times it falls down because the Java is just not comprehensible and maintainable. So I guess you can decide yourself when you see the presentation. But what we do, our approach to this is, we already have a product, CM Evolve IT, that you might have heard of. But it's a product that parses a wide variety of different languages, including COBOL and RPG, but also models like CA2E, CA Plex, and Lansa, DDS, SQL, works with Git. So we have basically a huge repository of typical application, and we see on the IBM I is usually pretty big. And we have a repository that contains all that code and all the connections between the code and connections between the 2E model and the COBOL, for example. So we're kind of in a good position to take that code base and then move that to a different language. And we're focused a lot on Java right now, but we're not exclusively on Java. We do work with C# some. Java is a great language because it runs not only on the IBM I, but also on any other platform you can possibly imagine: Azure, AWS, Windows, Linux. So it's really good from that perspective. C# is a great language too, but the problem for most people is you can't run that on the I. And a lot of times you want to run your Java on the I, at least for a transitional period. Okay, so we take the code out of the tool, we parse it, we take the rules from the transformation, how COBOL should be transformed to Java, for example. It's analyzed and then it's transformed and formatted into Java code and with an exposed API. So that's kind of the concept, and Kiyoshi is going to come do a demonstration of the nuts and bolts of how it actually works. So I'll make you presenter, Kiyoshi, if you're okay.
So I do demo mainly, but just need to wait. all right, I mentioned. So this green 3 box is a magic exist. And so the approach is, yeah, well, if that's a COBOL to Java case, so COBOL as programming languages first, so break down to the token, and then token has based on the syntax of COBOL. So you have syntax tree called, yeah, it's called abstract syntax tree. Well, then approach is convert that abstract layer to Java syntax. So it's not like a text manipulation at this layer. So just a syntax tree to the Java and COBOL syntax to Java syntax as like a tree level. Because you can imagine like move A to B, that's a COBOL syntax sequence. But in Java or most of languages, B equal A. So the order is different, lots of things happen. Like you can imagine like a translate from English to Japanese, but that's all done by like a grammar level kind of. So that same thing happened. And then finally, if you're ready, just dump as source. So source output is kind of result of those transform. So I straight to demo. So first, just show the how it's converted. So I have two COBOL program here. So left hand is just handwritten, and the right hand is a TUI generated external function. So both does something similar, just to calculate amount, multiply price, and then calculate total. And if I have shown this is a folder, you get something Java code here in the moment. So if I run the conversion to, just to wait here. So I'm converting to COBOL source as Java. Just to take, yeah, okay. Now you get the two Java code here. So of course I can open this side, application, and yeah. So I go to this order discount Java. So it's somehow magically converted. So maybe see something too interesting is that there's like a calculation here, multiply. So that's some kind of quantity versus the, yeah, there's calculation is happening. For those COBOL people, if you hear, so this converted result also take care of like a data source level, data structure level assignment and the truncation, everything. So it's like a, in the COBOL, you don't do like a field equal field always. You maybe do the higher level, like a data structure equal data structure. So those also taken care of the way it is. Okay. So I just run compile one program discount order discount Java. So if I compile, okay, it's compiled, and then now you see some classes created here. Okay, and then if I run, so you get some number out. So this program doesn't do too much complicated thing, but it's calculate and finally display the total with the company name. And then as you see in Java, it's a system out, print out, and assignment happening, and then total is displayed like this. So that's a very simple, but it's a well formatted and working very hard, I think, under the cover, but it's a very quick way to show the COBOL to Java. Okay, now I have a TUI converted Java 2, so I play with that a little bit more because this is TUI made and it has input and the output parameter. So we can apply to do the API interface. Okay. Now go to here. So, well, this is a mobile ID, and so I have that code inside of this inventory repository. So let's show you something quickly. So I already kind of copy the Java source together. So you see some like, so left hand is original COBOL and the right hand is converted to Java. So it is nice highlighter, so you can see the Java keyword is highlighted and the COBOL keyword is also highlighted. But so this is the same code, it's just generated by the engine. Okay, so you see that logic. Well, I don't go too deep today, but if you want to know how it's actually happening, it's probably like it takes more than one day to explain, but we can maybe have a deep dive for that. Okay, now I have a function. So I created a model here. Okay, so it's just a structured item, so API main level and the order controller, and the order controller has method name with that, and this is an implemented function. Okay. To save time, I already started, but this is hosted as Spring Boot API interface, and Servo is listening, and the order controller have the method order a name of program and then calling backend. Okay, so this interface is there, and we have a request model and a response model to receive and to return. Okay. Now, just need a little trick here. So I have a URL here. I open that. So it's open the Swagger. Swagger is like an API interface. You can inject to the Java code, so you don't need to separate documentation. It's all about done by from the Java source code. Okay, so there is an order controller we created, and then this is a method we have, and it's asking 3 parameters: amount and quantity and the product ID. So let's try that. So if I type change, maybe 100, and then, well, product ID is not used for demo, but I can set something, and then I say 5. Okay, so then if I do execute, so it's if I click execute, it's make a REST API call to the backend Spring Boot environment, and then you get the result 500, and then discount is applied is no. So I think if I increase some amount larger, then you see the discount is applied and something minused. So that's how the future of the COBOL to Java thing. So this is non-UI. Yeah, we're working hard, and then design conceptually. This tool is very capable to convert lots of things. So like John said, Java is one output target, so C# could be other so option. Okay, I think I stop here.
Great job, Kiyoshi. Now we have Alexander Levy from Barrow, Quebec, who's undertaken a project to modernize the CA2E RPG application into a rich browser-based application.
Good. First of all, I'm Alexander. I'm from the Barreau du Québec. I'm the IT software management manager for the last 2.5 years. But before that, I was for more than 10 years a Plex developer. So Plex is my background. As soon as I left schools, I started with a company that used Plex. And at the bar, we use Plex also as a 2E. the starting point of the Barreau is at first the Barreau was found in 1849, so it's been a while. So we have various systems that go through the ages, starting with papers, going through ITs, and where we are right now. We are the lawyers, professional orders. We have over 30,000 members that will use our systems, and they are using it through various ways. All our systems are in-house systems. We have we have one in 2E that have been converted, that the one we talked today. We also have one in CA Plex that we are using, and we have over 250 forms that are in PDF or complex Java apps, but they all have a lot of time being passed, so they need to be modernized too. The bar before I came in as try a big bang, like every company, they thought that they could do. They bought Dynamics and thought it would be easy to just put in Dynamics and everything goes well. So it's resulted in a 10-year plus IT freeze, no development instead of bug. Except of bugs, everything was on hold. We don't do anything on in-house system for 10 years. And it resulted total failure because nobody knows the business rules of the systems. They were there for so long. And when we talk to employees, they didn't know what the system does. They know where to click, but they don't know why they click there. So in 2021, the real modernization begins. I was brought in to start the modernization of the bar, and that's where we start with the 2E apps because we have retirement and mandatory change. A lot of 2E developers here in Quebec had retired. There's no much left. So our 2 developers that we had has retired. They do knowledge transfer to other developers, but none of the other developers we had never used 2E. They can look at it, they can use it, but they never use it in the real life. So we have to do something right now. And Quebec law has changed, and for the first time in decades, we need to do major change to our 2E systems. Between 2 and 3 years scope, we had to do some major change that was mandatory. So it was too short to modernize all the systems with our normal path that we use right now. It's what hard to find 2E developer even more speaking French in Quebec. And we already have 4 Plex developers. So migrating from 2E to Plex was the way because we are now have people that can maintain this application. That's where we talk with CM first and brought in the M3. And we go to the green screen that we had before to the new rich application that looked pretty much the same as the 2 times award Abraham, but you saw it's pixelized in the screen because I work with lawyers and I need to pixelize everything that's name and thing like that. But the apps was transferred using the same shortcuts, the same path that they used before. So for users, it's easy to know, okay, the system will do the same. Every employee that we have with 20 plus years of employment here know the shortcut by heart. So they keeping the shortcuts, pressing F3, F4, F14, that's what they do. So keeping this through the transition to the new app, it's a game changer for them because they don't change all the way to work. It was an easy code conversion. We don't have a lot of bug that was resulting of this conversion. It was pretty smooth. New employees were easier to onboard because when you have a 20 years old new employee that comes, they don't want to work on an IBMI. So the onboarding is very easy with a new app like that. But old employees still love their green screens. They don't want to get rid of. So we need to put in place a transition plan. It cannot be shut down on day one. It took over a year to transition people through the app time by time, maintaining both for some time, but we synchronize the shutdown with the new mandatory change that will come up in the few months. So at this point, all the new change are only in the new app, so nobody will use the green screen anymore at the bar. In parallel of this conversion, lately we start what we talk as we told our real modernization plan, that is to convert all the implication, all the forms that I talked earlier about, through the new model that I will show up later on. So we build a portal for the members. We build a new application for the form that is used once a year by all the lawyers to fill up information. And that was the start of our modernization for the forms. So the next step for us for the migration is to do a step-by-step phase. We don't want to go back to a big bang. So we build the service layer over Plex entity database. So this layers is a REST API, Spring Boots, map to SQL servers, and we are doing a bridge through our 2M Plex application to the new ones that are in Angular and Spring Boot. Target that we have is to move out of ABMI. We don't think that we need ABMI anymore. SQL so is a better way for us to go. We're moving on the cloud, so that's the plan. To do so, we brought out a team of analysts that is going through the services, talking to every employee to try to sort out the new business rules for the futures. We will do it as it is right now, like we do with the TWI apps. We will bring out the new business rules and build out using our new platform in Spring Boot and Angular. It's gonna be a step-by-step. It's gonna be a long road, but at least we're moving forward right now instead of the 10 years freeze that we had. In future webcasts or conferences, I could present more about our new way to modernize through Spring Boot and Angular. But right now, was more on what we have done right now. If you have questions, I'm pleased to answer them. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Alexander. We have one more poll question. We're coming up on the end of our hour here, and if you've been this before, we ask a question called MINT, M-I-N-T, where M is going to be that you want to schedule a meeting. I is you want to introduce us. You might not be the right person. Want to introduce us to something, and you take over the need the console to be back on. On the main. N is basically a newsletter, and T means that there's someone else that we should be talking to. So again, M is to meet with someone on one of these topics. I is to introduce us to someone else, typically in your organization, who wasn't on the webcast today but would be interested. Or third, add me to the community newsletter, which comes out monthly. We've got different topics and different point perspectives on the business. Or lastly, that we should make a talk to a different group. And again, our organizers and panelists do not vote. And so last, we don't, we're not going to show the results of this letter, but we do have a survey, very important, about the upcoming 14th conference next fall, and other related questions. And that is going to be provided up on the screen here, as well as when you leave, there'll be a follow-on email that will help you to do that. It's very similar to what Roger was reporting on the results of people who had gone to the conference. Same idea. Survey follow-on to give us a better idea of what we need to work on, and how we can make the 14th conference even better than any of the others that we had. That's right. We've had 14 of these every year and a half.
Hey, Mark, we got some questions we need to get to if you can.
Yeah, great. So Q&A. John,
So,
if you could just read the questions off the console.
One person had some audio issues, couldn't hear, and I'll just respond that they're going to make the recording available, and then we think the sound is fine. We checked with some of the attendees, and it seems like the sound is fine, so we think the recording will be fine, and you'll be able to listen to the presentation. Another question is, I would like to get the extra PDFs or other slides shared. I guess that would be Alexandra and Abram's slides. Are you guys happy to share those?
No problem. I'll send you the slides.
Okay.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, so we'll make sure those go out with recording, everybody.
Great.
Another question is, what will the cost be for the next conference?
Okay.
That's right.
You know, I'm sure that we will keep the cost model in line with previous conferences. We always do our best to look at what we anticipate that it's going to cost us to put the conference on, and then price it so that we can break even. So I would think that the cost would be in line with previous conferences, very low.
Thank you. Here's a question for Abram, I think. How long did it take you to learn Java?
Really, I mean, I would not consider myself the greatest Java expert on the face of the earth, but no, I mean, it's just something you kind of pick up over time. Really, there are so many good online resources out there for that you could pick up, especially with relating to how the Plex Java works. You could pick that up fairly quickly. I don't know if I feel comfortable giving an exact amount of time, but if it was something like that you truly focused on, because mine was just really passive over time, I mean, it could be fairly quickly. And really, I've always said this about just pretty much any language, really. Syntax is really not a big deal. Anybody can learn syntax. It's understanding how everything fits together in the more efficient way and the proper way to do things, which I'm sure we're all senior developers here probably have that and probably have those skills. So I am confident that any Plex developer, if they want to, can learn Java fairly easily.
Super. Okay, another question, maybe for all three the speakers, or at least for Abram and Alexander. Can you comment on the performance of the migrated COBOL application, or migrated application?
Alexander, you want to go first?
You can go.
Super.
Okay, so yeah, so the real performance hiccups come from just a different way that the 2E would access data compared to Plex, where let's say in 2E and in DDS, you're looking for something on 8 different tables, you're calling 8 different block fetches, and then afterwards you figure out you don't want to use that and you say no. Obviously, when you move into a JDBC connection and SQL connection environment, that is an inefficient way to do things. So you will have slow things like that. Really, SQL optimization, once that is there and once everything is not anything absurd, it runs fairly comparable. Obviously, going through the web, just the payload difference going from the server to the user's browser is going to be bigger than the green screen. So literal instantaneous updates like you see on the green screen, it's just not really feasible in a lot of modern environments just because of travel time and you're sending more than a kilobyte worth of information. But for the most part, you saw kind of our page loads when I showed, that's that's really what it is like throughout the application. So
Exactly. The application works very well. There's no performance issues. The only one that we had was because on the two apps, we load all the data in the grid because we only show one at the time. But when we go back to a grid in the rich application on the web, loading the 30,000 members before filtering was slow for no reason. So now we don't populate the grid at first, and we ask them to sort before, and that's intense. It's very, very, very quick. There's no performance issue. It's very easy and very fast and responsive. And the gain that you have with the web app versus the green screen will be better than the little less performance that you can have. They're just win to move to a web app like that.
Super. So, Mark, Roger, I think that's all the questions we have time for. There's a couple others, but we'll answer those in the follow-on response email.
Okay, great. So I want to thank everyone for your kind attention today, and we'll be seeing you in about another 3 months on this for having another community webinar, and I would look forward to seeing you the next time that we can communicate with each other. Thanks again, and enjoy your back to work week after the summer. So long now.